Hey guys, welcome back to chemistry. It's Miss Walenta, and today we are going to talk about our multi-charged metals, how to name them, and write out our formulas. So last time you guys looked at single charged metals. Those are our two in these columns and our two in these columns. So congratulations, you made it through single charged metals. Today we're going to be talking about multi-charged metals. This is, in our group, hopefully it's familiar to you, our transition metals. So first thing to look at, same as our other metals, all of the charges that we see here are positive. So even though we have multiple charges, all of the multiple charges are positive. This means that we are losing electrons. That's really important as we continue to talk about our bonding, especially our ionic bonds. So what does it mean when these elements are multi-charged? Well, this means that they're willing to lose different numbers of electrons. Our single-charged elements are only willing to lose either 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but they're not willing to lose any other number. Our multi-charged elements, our multi-charged metals, could lose 2 or 3 depending on what they're bonding with and what elements that we find. So before we can do any sort of naming, we have to do a quick review on Roman numerals and figure out what our Roman numerals even mean when we're talking about our multi-charged metals. So our quick review is here. Hopefully this looks familiar to you. If not, this is a really good key. This is a really good resource for you to use as you are practicing today and tomorrow. So keep this, take a screenshot, do something with this. You have this in your notes. So be using this if that's helpful for you. What we are going to use our Roman numerals for is to help us represent our charge. So our Roman numerals are going to be equal to the charge of our metal. So for our first example, we have Fe with a positive 3 charge, so we're going to use our positive 3. When we're writing it out, we write out our whole metal name, so we write out iron, and then in parentheses behind iron, we're going to put our Roman numeral 3. What I think would be easiest for you guys and what I have been doing on the computer is just using a capital I or a capital V when you are writing these out. That's kind of the best format I've found. The second one, we're looking at titanium with a +2 charge. So the first thing I'm going to do is write out titanium. Won't fit in my box, but yours, it'll get bigger, so it'll fit in yours. Titanium with a +2 charge means I'm going to put my Roman numeral 2 in there, or 2 capital I's. My third one is copper with a +1 charge. I'm going to write out copper. And in my parentheses, 1 capital I. And finally, I have strontium with a +2 charge. I'm going to write out strontium. And in my parentheses, a +2 charge, Roman numeral 2. So when we are writing our formulas from our name with our multi-charged metals, we have 4 steps. So we'll go through this example using our 4 steps. So we have copper 2 chloride. We're given the name. We need to write the chemical formula for it. So first things that I'm going to do is write out my element symbols. My element symbols, Cu and Cl. Step 2, I'm going to use the Roman numeral as the charge for my metal. So my Roman numeral is 2. I'm going to put a +2 in this corner. That's my +2. I have copper with a +2 charge. The next thing that I need to do, it's not listed here, but I need to figure out my charge for chlorine. Chlorine is not one of our multi-charged metals, so we can use that periodic table at the top to tell us what our charge for chlorine is. Chlorine is going to fall into this column, so chlorine will have a -1 charge. We'll always have a -1 charge. So chlorine is -1. The next thing that I'm going to do is crisscross. So what this means is I'm going to take my charge from my copper and bring it down to the bottom by my chlorine. I'm going to take my charge from chlorine and bring it down and put it by the bottom of my copper. So this kind of gives us that little crisscross look. Then we are going to put that together to give us our final answer. So we'll have copper Cu with a 1. So we don't have to write anything. You can write a 1 or you can just leave it. Cl2. So we don't transfer that charge. So we wouldn't put a -1 there. That just tells us the number that we'll have. And that balances out our equation so that our formula so that it equals 0. Because that way we have 1 +2 and we have 2 -1s. That gets us back to 0. So I have 2 practice problems for you guys to do. I want you to pause the video and try it now. And then when you come back, you can check your answers to see if you guys got it right. So I'll give you a chance to pause it, then I will go through our answers. All right, so copper 1 oxide. First thing I want to do, I want to write out my abbreviations, my chemical Cu and O. Next thing I want to do, I'm going to use my charge here. My Roman numeral is my charge, so copper has a +1 charge. Using the periodic table, I know that my oxygen has a -2 charge. Now I want to crisscross, bring these down and around. Can write out my final answer, Cu2O. So to double check my answers here, copper has a +1 charge, so I have +1 once, and then I have +1 again. I have 2 +1s. My oxygen, I have 1 -2. When I put these together, I get 0. So I did it right. That's my final answer, Cu2O. Our next one, cobalt 2 nitride. I'll write out my cobalt is CO. My nitride is N, it's nitrogen. So my Roman numeral 2 here is going to be my charge +2 for my cobalt nitride, or nitrogen. So I didn't do this for our first one, but if you are confused about where I got that number, I'm going to come up here, and then I need to figure out where nitrogen is on this periodic table. So you might have to have this up and a periodic table. Nitrogen has a -3 charge. So I'm going to come back down. My nitrogen, oh shoot. My nitrogen has a -3 charge. I'm going to grab these and rearrange, do our little crisscross, which will get me my final answer of CO3N2. So just like I did with the first one, you can check those charges and make sure that it equals 0. Once you get that, you can put in your formula, CO3N2. So the next thing we have to do is kind of reverse it. We have to figure out our name based off of the formula. So first thing we have to do, we'll go through with our 4 steps again using our example. We're going to write out our element names. So first, write it out, our copper and our chlorine. Then I need to figure out the charge of my metal using my crisscross method. So I have 1 down here for each of these, my invisible ones. I'm going to bring them up. That's going to tell me my charge for each. So in this case, each of them has our copper has a +1 charge, and our chlorine has a -1 charge. So I just did that crisscross, told me that each one is 1. So once I figure out my charge for my metal, I'm going to insert my Roman numeral. The Roman numeral is just going to be an I, 1 I. We have a charge of 1. The last thing I have to do is change my suffix, my ending of my nonmetal from "ine" to "ide." So I have copper 1 chloride. So using those steps, we have 3 more practice problems. I'll go through 2 of them with you guys. Pause the video here and try it yourself, and then we will go through it together. All right, so for our first one, we have MnO, so find those on your periodic table. We're going to write it out. Manganese, and leave a room there for our parentheses, manganese, and then oxygen. So manganese, we have a blank there, oxygen. I need to figure out what my charge is. So if my oxygen, first of all, I want to find my oxygen on the periodic table because I know what my charge is for oxygen. My charge for oxygen is always -2. And if I have 1 manganese and 1 oxygen, then my manganese is going to be a +2 charge. This one's tricky because we can't always use the crisscross method to give us 1, because we have to look at what our nonmetal charge is. We always know our nonmetal charge. After we figure out our nonmetal charge, then we can do our crisscross. So no worries if that got you tricked up a little bit. So I have 1 +2, 1 -2. That's going to cancel out and give me 0. So I know in my parentheses I can put my Roman numeral 2. The last thing that I need to do is switch my suffix, my ending for oxygen, to "ide." So my final answer, I have manganese 2 oxide. For our second one, scroll down a little bit for you guys, write out my element name, copper, and leave a spot for my chloride. Oh, my pen is acting up. All right, copper, parentheses, chlorine, write out my chlorine, copper, space, chlorine. Going to use my crisscross method, Cu, Cl, this 2 is going to come up. My charge for chlorine, I can find on my periodic table, is -1. So my 1 from here is going to work for my 1 up there. Now my 2 is going to come up here, and I'm going to have a +2 charge. So with my crisscross method, I know my -1 and my +2. Same thing as we did when we were writing out the formula. You can check your answer by making sure that our element equals 0. So I have, in this example, I have 1 copper with a +2 charge, and I have 2 chlorines with a -1 charge. And when we put that together, we're going to get 0. So my copper must have a +2 charge. Last thing I need to do is switch my chlorine to chloride. So my final answer here will be copper to chloride. Now there are 12 for you guys to complete on your own, 6 writing out the names, 6 writing out the formulas. If you're paying attention right now, I'm only going to ask you to do 4 of each. If you didn't pay attention, you're going to be doing all of them. So make sure you do all of these problems. And if you are paying attention, you can just write down, I was listening and I'm only doing 4 of each. If you didn't catch that, you're going to do all of these problems, okay? So make sure you ask questions. That is our quick run through of multi-charged metals. Make sure you ask me or your teacher questions as you are working on these on your own practice. All right, have a great day.